Welcome back. I am Dr. AJ Merlino. I am the Associate Dean for the School of Business Technology and Industry, and I am so excited to be moderating this panel, Artificial Intelligence and the Workplace. I know that I have the hardest hour of the day simply because we're going to be fighting the afternoon sleepies. So I have a group of very exciting panelists to help me out today. So we have Mike Dorico all the way on the left, the owner of Dorico's Sound Design and Associate Professor of Music and Computer Science at Albright College, representing the arts. Joe Emmerich, Portfolio Leader of HVAC Mechanical Solutions for Johnson Controls. Yeah, big round of applause there. Thank you, Margie. That's the energy I need, folks. It's after lunch. Chandra Mast, Certified General Appraiser, Red Rose Appraisals. Scott Davis, yeah, woo, I like that too. Scott Davis, VP of IT Services at Everround and Chairman of the Cybersecurity Association of Pennsylvania. There we go. Ken Bray, Visual Content Producer, Benchmark Construction. Oh yeah, it's getting better. Yeah, Chris Swecker, Director of Managed Services, Appalachia Technologies. Yeah, DJ Schnabel, PhD candidate in Nursing and Translational Science, Adjunct Instructor, Penn State and Hack. And yeah. And that's right. Love the energy. And Brian Gregg, co-chair of McNeese Wallace and Nurek Intellectual Property Practice Group. Help me welcome all of our panelists. Thank you. So I have a lot of questions for these folks. And I know you have a lot of questions for these folks. I'm going to start, but if you have any questions as we go, hop on down to these microphones, or we'll have our folks on Zoom ask some questions. The first question, I really want to get started with everyone, and this is for the full panel. Answer if you'd like. How is your organization currently using AI, and what motivated that adoption? Awesome.
All right, since everyone's going to go at once. So how is the organization using AI? So I'm going to approach this in two different ways. As far as the association goes, it's all about time saving. Running a nonprofit is extremely difficult. You don't have a lot of resources. AI saves time. It saves the energy. It saves the resources. Putting together a breaking news article or an article around a recent cyber attack, gathering information, sharing that information, using AI gets that information together, puts it together well, and allows us to distribute that pretty rapidly. Now, you also have to fact check it, but going through that journey, there's a lot of different ways that we use it as far as the association goes, mainly, curing that writer's cramp, getting the news out across the board as quickly as possible, making sure we're educating the communities that we service to keep them all safe and secure.
Hello, Chandra Mast, General Appraiser. At Red Rose Appraisals, we have 83 custom GPTs that we layer into our workflow, along with several other AI tools that it's a layering process, task by task, that we utilize for really every step of appraisals these days for evaluating land, residential property, commercial property, going concerns. It has transformed the industry 100%.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Joe Emmerich, Johnson Controls. I like to say we started artificial intelligence in 1885. Like you, many in this room, our founder, Warren Johnson, was a teacher, and he wanted to provide better comfort for his classroom, so he invented the first thermostat. So back in that day, that was artificial intelligence. Fast forward 140 years, where we are today, you see the mega trends that are happening in our society with, the desire for sustainability, energy reduction. How do we continue to take energy and use it more efficiently? How do we leverage technology in buildings? So from an energy perspective, we're using AI to really take these information data from the building management systems and make the systems work much more. And then on the space side, working with our FM systems group, providing a lot of concierge services now for people who want to automate their building to do some really unique things. Maybe we can talk about them during the panel, but those are probably the big areas we're working on.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike Dorico, Albright College. I teach in 2 programs at Albright, and I also do work as a freelance composer, sound designer, mixing engineer, that type of thing. And I probably like what the conversations that you're all having here. Albright, like many higher education institutions, are still trying to figure out how to leverage this type of stuff. I'm in programs like music technology and game design, where it's sort of baked in. And that's also sort of my space as a freelancer as well. I'd say that the benefit that I've found from it that has allowed me to be more open to how it can be used as a professor is to use it sort of as as a true assistant and not as sort of like a servant, which I think there's like a mindset that we can just tell these things to do what we want, right? We're surrounded by Alexas and all these things, or Siri. If you can use the tools in a way that it's truly an assistant and you're using your expertise to kind of counter what it's providing to you, I think that can be very beneficial. I use a software, for example, are there music folks in the room? Isotope is a music software that you can say, mix my music, mix this entire song for me. And you just press a button, right? And people certainly use it in that way, but one of the nice things about it is that what you're getting out of the deep learning models that they're giving you is that they've analyzed thousands of commercial music recordings, and they're saying, here's what we think might work based on those recordings. So if you can kind of take your expertise in your given field and then use what expertise the model's providing for you, I feel like that can be a beneficial use to it that can sometimes alleviate the fears we have about it.
Brian Gregg with McNeese. So as a law firm, we sort of have two sides of the house. There's the business of running a law firm. There's HR, there's hiring, there's performance reviews, there's all those things. And we're leveraging AI right now to make those jobs easier, to synthesize data, to anonymize reviews, things like that. So the traditional time savings. But then there's also the practice of law. And I think this will probably come up as we go through the panel, but law firms in general are cautious in adopting new technology when it involves the practice of law, the actual legal research or coming to advice that you might give clients. So we're seeing these tools work their way into the systems that we use, but I wouldn't say that at the moment AI is dominating legal research and legal document production and legal thinking, but it's exciting to see what's coming.
Hi, everyone. My name is DJ Schnabel. So I have a bit of a different background. I'm a pediatric critical care nurse, and I decided to go back for my PhD. And had you told me 5 years ago that I would be on this panel, I'd be pretty surprised. I discovered the potential for artificial intelligence and machine learning in medical research, and particularly looking at the development of children into adolescence and looking at how health can change over time. And that's all from the capacity of AI to be able to process these large data sets that we have available out there. I find it interesting that there are a lot of really, really great data scientists out there who are doing work to develop meaningful clinical algorithms that are now being used in the bedside and starting to be integrated into healthcare. There's much fewer clinicians that are out there that have learned the data science end of things to help safely translate some of those models into practice. So I would say that in my industry, in healthcare, there's a twofold sort of learning opportunity that we have right now. And one is, understanding how these AI algorithms work and how they can inform patient care. But then there's also the aspect of how can we use freely available AI interfaces like ChatGPT to augment critical thinking and to augment our clinical decision making, while still being sure that we're practicing safely. And still going back to the idea that nursing is a human field and requires human judgment in order to be able to take care of patients safely.
Thanks. I'm Chris Swecker, Appalachian Technologies. We have a couple different ways we use it. Obviously, we're a tech company, so we kind of got a head start. But a lot of our tools use AI to detect anomalous behavior on a network or in a server farm or something like that. But the most interesting thing we found is we custom coded some ChatGPT-like things for using a private platform we have, so none of our data goes outside our office. And just giving our technicians a troubleshooting help helped reduce our response and resolution times by 15 or 20%, just with a tool that costs us about $50 a month. The other thing that I think I do that might be weird is I did read an article about how Workday, big HR software companies, being sued for bias in their HR training. Essentially, the problem is I have a job opening, I get 200 resumes, I need to get rid of as many as possible, so I'm not wasting my time. The problem is it disproportionately will only pick white male names. So it doesn't matter how good the resume is. So we don't use it that way. But what I did find is I use it kind of in the co-intelligence kind of Ethan Mollick sense of giving me a brainstorming partner. So I'll go through the resumes and pick the ones that I think are best, and then run the ones I've kind of soft projected through AI and have it include more people. So say, who are the people in here that I might have missed that I use it as a check for my bias, not a source to introduce its own. I think that's one of the most important things when we're talking about, I think you made a good point that nursing is a human field. Every field should be a human field, especially the way we want to do technology is have it work for people, not be your biggest enemy, which is sometimes what actually happens. Sorry about that. But yeah, there are ways to actually introduce and restore people's humanity using technology instead of stripping it away all the time.
Thanks. Ken Bray with Benchmark Construction. I too was kind of curious why I even ended up here, because I work in construction, which is a very human-oriented industry. But surprisingly, construction is essentially a really big story that we're trying to tell. And everything that we do is very hands-on, it's very technical, and a lot of times all of our clients, all of our shareholders, they're non-technical people. So it bridges that gap between the story, trying to relay a technical message to a non-technical audience.
We talked about this a little bit at lunch, and I kind of want to bring it back, and it touches on a couple of the statements you all made. We're talking about how artificial intelligence augments some of our work and it makes things more efficient, but also has the ability to transform our organizational strategy. So I want to take that macro level approach next. How has artificial intelligence changed or will change your organizational strategy or your industry as a whole?
So in terms of the arts or the creative industries, I think probably the biggest thing it's done has increased the scale and scope of output and content, right? We're in this world of content is king, social media content creation, right? So the scale and scope of what gets put out is high, and in that way it's kind of revived these old conversations about long tail capitalism. That, oh, this is great because now anyone can become a musician or an artist or a visual artist or a game designer, right? At the same time, the income streams for how you actually make a living off these things have diminished, right? We're seeing an increasing monopolization within the entertainment industries. So I think that's caused a challenge that is partly the result of AI and also just increasingly algorithmic culture in general. But I think one thing that I've seen, at least with my students, and what I try to teach them is how to develop taste ultimately, right? Because if taste has become increasingly algorithmic and sort of predetermined in many ways for a lot of our students, is that taste still matters and being able to develop taste. And a lot of that comes from actually participating in culture. So I think there's a way that if we can use these tools in a way to help us pinpoint culture and like from a marketing standpoint, like what is the market context? That's ultimately what a lot of art students need to know now is like, what is the market context that they're entering? I think AI tools can be used to help pinpoint that and help kind of give them a closer connection to that because the amount of data sets that they're working with to understand that has increased so much.
I would say at Johnson Controls, you think about what we do in buildings and facilities. So you think about like even campuses like this here at HACC where we have a lot of our technology. How do we leverage this data in a much more way, not just on the demand side, how are we controlling energy, electricity in buildings, but now we start looking at AI, now we can start looking at supply side. So you think about where energy is coming from. As a building owner, you have choices. So if you run a central plant, you have steam, you have chilled water, you have gas. Allowing these systems to be intelligent enough to reach out and know what's happening through APIs in the supply side will allow you to say, what's my best choice today, both from an energy, from sustainability, what are the goals of my organization? And then you think about from the employee experience, both from our employees as well as our customers, being able to generate reports. And this will never take away jobs in this way, but it's going to enhance the jobs because there's things you can't see. The average technician looking at an HVAC system when you can look at these trends and pull this data, now you're going to use artificial intelligence to allow you to be much more effective. So think about being a facility manager of multiple campuses. You can use AI to pull data. What's my most efficient building? What's my most inefficient building? How do I prioritize based on my goals where I should be spending my time today to have the biggest impact? AI is going to allow you to do that, leveraging the data from the systems to information and really helping you.
Well, in the appraisal profession, it has transformed with artificial intelligence, and I'm hearing this data sets from a lot of people, and that's really what it comes down to, because as an appraiser, we work with large data sets, and we're constantly folding them and putting them together. Having these data sets it's changed the profession because a lot of appraisers historically have used what's known as matched pairs. You get a couple of comps, you know this one's got a pool, you know that one's got a fence, and they just stick to those pairs. That's created a lot of bias in the industry. There's a complete overhaul nationwide. I'm on the state board for Pennsylvania Certified Appraisers, and as a regulatory body, we're working really hard to get that confirmation bias out of the profession. Using larger data sets and being able to work through multiple regression sets has transformed the profession because not a lot of appraisers know how to do that or want to know how to do that. Not a lot of them got past algebra the first time around and basically are stuck with these matched pairs. So the entire profession has to change to understand large data sets, how to talk to large data sets, how to navigate them, how to store them. And that's something that we just didn't have before. So we have to develop new methodologies and new language. One of our rules of competency is you have to stay up on all the new techniques and methods that are available to appraisers. So that has transformed the entire industry. We have a brand new mobile device nationwide that's rolling out in September for beta testing. And then in January, it's going to become required for all residential appraisers to use this mobile-based app that's got AI driving it. So a lot of our senior appraisers who are teetering on retirement or who have technophobia aren't going to be embracing that and are using this as a signal to exit the profession. So we need appraisers. There's a huge shortage of them, but you've got to understand math, you've got to understand AI. It's all coming together.
Can I give a follow-up? And then, of course, you're probably prepped on this question now, and I'm going to change it up on you. I'm sorry. But Mike mentioned something, and we kind of touched on this a little bit. The barriers to entry are a little bit lower, right, on some of these professions and some of these abilities to do entry-level jobs. And the EAB presentation that we saw earlier, I just got louder because I turned my head, I'm sorry, up there, Alex. The EAB presentation that we saw earlier, one of the largest impacted groups are being amongst the entry-level positions. So I guess my question for all of you, if we are seeing that artificial intelligence has the capacity to not just augment, but replace some entry-level jobs, what are the skills necessary to advance these individuals, one, into the first job, second job, third job? How will they have career longevity in all of your industries? Just a small question, just, you know.
I went first on the first one, and, I was prepped, 3 spin, I had it ready to go. And, AI is not new. Artificial intelligence isn't new. It's been around. You heard Johnson Controls mention it, the thermostat. You can go back even further, the first Google searches, the Yahoo searches, Wikipedia. This is all using different methodologies of allowing you to gather information in different ways. When you go to Google now, you're not getting at the top of the result a index of websites out there. You're getting Google Intelligence giving you an AI answer based on what you're asking Google. When you go to your smartphone, you're using Apple Intelligence or Samsung Intelligence in every aspect of what we do. And it's not something that we should be afraid of. It's something that we have to make sure we understand and we are using it to improve our daily lives, that we are using it to improve our workflow. And that is what's going to revolutionize the jobs that we have today, the jobs that are going to be formed tomorrow. Will there be jobs that are lost? There will. They're going to be replaced by new jobs that are utilizing AI methodology, AI workloads to streamline and operize. The key thing is, you can make a robot that's going to flip burgers, but the robot's never going to interact with someone or understand, hey, I'm missing the burger bun every single time. You need that human touch. You need that human aspect. The banana ball baseball has it right. It's fan first. Well, with technology, it's end user first. And if we're not putting the end user first, you're missing that key aspect of it. what we've seen over the last few years is tremendous advancement in AI and machine learning. Before we had AI, it was machine learning. Before it was machine learning, it was something. We're constantly looking at ways to automate our lives, to save you time, to save costs, using a thermostat at home that automatically can say, hey, it's really hot, turn the air on, hey, turn it off. You know, I remember back in the days having to get up and actually go turn the TV off. Now the TV's like, hey, you've been watching the same thing. You're obviously not still watching Netflix. I'm gonna turn it off for you. So there are ways that we're using every day in our lives, AI, that's helping you through the day, that's helping you manage your workload. So don't be afraid of it, but at the same token, as we move forward and getting back to that core question, is embrace it. Don't be afraid of it, but be smart. Talk to your peers how they're using it. Do it as a group instead of just trying to do the journey on your own.
They told us not to mix mics. That's why. So in construction, I think the simple answer is a lot of the tedious, mundane tasks like filling out RFI requests or change orders or emails, meeting minutes. AI automation tools can help replace some of those more tedious tasks and give our team the ability to focus more on high-level thinking, more critical decision-making tasks. So at least from my perspective in construction, a lot of the AI tools that we're seeing are helping free our team up to do more high-level thinking, and that's what's important, and that's what we need more of, is that high-level reasoning and the ability to make decisions that AI just are unable to make.
I think it's a lot of the approach is how you even frame the question in the beginning. I think a lot of companies, no one here, you guys are great. A lot of other companies are looking at this as, oh good, we can cut costs. We can lay some people off, hallelujah. If you take that approach, it's poison to your culture. If your employees know that, hey, if you have a great idea for how to automate part of your job, that's awesome. We can fire 4 of your friends now. You're never gonna hear those ideas. So we are very careful that we're automating the parts of the job the humans don't want to do. Have you ever talked to an IT guy, IT person? Was it a great experience for you? Okay, so we have some room to improve there. I don't want the AI telling my tech, who's working help desk, hey, this computer's been up for a long time. Sure, they know that. But can it help them write an email another human can read? Yes. There's not exactly a perfect circle Venn diagram between people who are great at troubleshooting and people who did really well in English class. So we're kind of selecting for the skills we need, and then AI can kind of supplant the rest. But if we look at this as what are the ways we can make someone's day better, easier, enhance their humanity, not take it away, I don't want to listen to music made by AI. It doesn't have a point of view. If it does, it's copied it from somebody else. I want to listen to music that's made by humans with a point of view where something happened a little wrong. Like I play electric guitar. I love distortion, that kind of overdriven sound. It was a mistake. The amp blew. And someone went, hey, that's kind of cool, let's just roll with that. Yeah. And now I have, $400 pedals to simulate the effect of stabbing your amp with a razor blade. So someone found a business model for that, congratulations. But if we're looking at this as a way to enhance people's humanity, take away the parts of your job you don't want to do. I don't know who I'm stealing this from, so I don't know how to credit them. But I saw someone say, I don't want AI to make music so I can spend more time washing the dishes. I want AI to wash the dishes so I have more time to write music. If we focus on the mundane, the repetitive, those types of things that are not the reason we get out of bed in the morning, those are the uses of AI that will actually enhance our humanity, make our lives easier. We've had this since like the 90s, right? Computers were supposed to make things more efficient. And my grandfather worked at the University of Maryland Agricultural Extension Agency, which is a really long way to spell farmer. And he was helping farmers. And in the late 80s, they tried to introduce PCs for everybody. And they said, hey, Ed, we've had these for 6 months now. Can you tell us how it's going? Can you help us write a quote so we can get a grant and get more of these? And he was near retirement at the time. So he wrote, after 6 months of studying and working really hard, it hardly slows me down at all. That was not what they were looking for. If we take that stuff away, you don't have to use it just to use it. Use it in ways that are actually improving people's lives and stop worrying about the bottom line so much. It'll follow.
I agree with a lot of what was just said. So I want to take a step back and just point out that when we talk about AI, there's a lot of different subsets of AI, okay? We can talk about machine learning, we could talk about large language models like ChatGPT, we could talk about robotics, right? And in my industry in healthcare, I've heard nurses attribute these new technologies in some way to taking over their job and being, taken away from the bedside. Based off of my studies over the last couple of years, I think that's something that I fundamentally disagree with. Nursing, just like a lot of health professions, is an evidence-based science, meaning that we practice and we make our decisions based off of the best research and best evidence that is out there and available to us. And I think the key is to understand that AI is going to become a fundamental part of our evidence generation. So I think that the nurses that are going to be quote unquote replaced, if you even want to use that word, are going to be those clinicians out there who are hesitant to accept that artificial intelligence is making its way into our evidence generation and into our guided practice. In fact, I think that we're expecting a huge job market in nursing informatics to be expanding over the next 10 years because of all of the integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning into bedside healthcare.
So I think in the legal profession, unfortunately, there will be fewer legal jobs. I think that's just reality. The legal profession is what's the word? It's an intelligence type economy, right? You're paying for someone's expertise, their judgment, and their ability to advise you on sort of what to do. And a lot of that does involve just significant amounts of mental horsepower. And you hire lots of junior people to provide that. And AI is a great tool. And those tools are coming very quickly to replace some of that. And so I do think there will be some loss of jobs in the legal profession. The other thing that's going to happen is, legal services are expensive. So there's always third parties on the outside trying to chip away at what law firms traditionally do and provide an alternative. And AI is going to give them the ability to do that. So on the horizon are definitely tools where you feed your case in and the other side feeds their case in, and it tells you what's going to happen. And it may not be perfect, but once people get confidence in that result, they're going to bring fewer lawsuits. They're going to spend less time arguing back and forth because they're going to have a pretty good idea of what the outcome of the case is going to be. So I really do think that the legal profession, in terms of just sheer number of lawyers, is going to shrink, but there will be opportunities outside the core legal profession for people to leverage AI.
Scott, you said something. I want to get back to it. And you said a lot of stuff that I want to get back to too, because we talked about this at lunch. It's amazing. Scott, you talked about the Savannah Bananas. I just want to talk about the Savannah Bananas. Being fan first and UX design being end user first, right? As educators, we have to be student first. So I'm going to frame this question as educators being student first. What technical skills and then what human skills do we need to make sure our students have after a certificate, after a diploma, after an associate's degree to be successful in all of your industries? Technical and human skills.
One of the hardest things to find in any employee is personality, is a genuine care for whoever your customer is. That is one of the hardest things to teach. It is one of the hardest things for someone to learn. And AI can't teach it, AI can't explain it, because with AI, it's that genuineness that is gone. You hear a lot in different industries, talk on the phone like you're smiling, because the other person can hear the smile. And that's extremely true. If you're miserable, if you're having a rough day, or if that AI bot just won't stop saying, I can't get you a real person, let's try your account number again. We've been there. It's frustrating. It's painful. And that's what AI is. And it can be. And that's where that human touch comes in. As educators, I truly believe every single person is an educator. Teachers, you guys have it extra hard because you do it every day and in a whole different way. But I'm an educator every day when I'm talking about technology, when I'm teaching my kids at 6 years old, at 9 years old, how to use different technology aspects, some of which I've never used. I'm not a Minecraft player. My 6-year-old's going around telling me he's no longer a noob. How'd you learn that? But it's the personal touch, taking what you learn, the information from ChatGPT, from the dictionary, from Wikipedia, from Google, from your peers, being able to decipher that, using your brain power, which is still the most powerful computer out there, to decipher your opinion on what you're sharing. Doing it with the personal touch, being genuine, understanding the other person's side of it, and listening. Those are things that we have to teach everyone better. I will hire someone that has less tech skills but a great personality any day over someone that's super strong in tech but is a miserable person to talk to. That's the IT person no one in the room wants to talk to. That, I would say, teaching the personality, teaching the genuineness behind something.
So as far as the technical aspect of it, I think AI literacy is really important. It's important for students to know how to use these tools and how to use them properly to maximize the generation that's coming from those models. It's easy to put a lot of garbage in and get a lot of garbage right back out. So being AI literate, knowing when to verify, not just trust blindly what is being given back to you. So knowing to be able to look through the data that's been produced, being able to verify whether or not this is true or not. Identify bias. We said it before, there's a lot of bias in some of these systems, and being able to recognize that and correct that ahead of time is really important as well. So from the technical aspect, just knowing how to work with the AI tools are really important as well.
I'll take it for a minute. I just wanted to talk for a minute. My answer is going to be how to communicate better. And on the topic of bias, I think I may have mentioned it already. As appraisers, we have a list of 144 words that we can't use in our reports. And they include words like family, neighborhood, income, woman. You can use the word man, of course. But there's a lot of words that you can't use. And understanding bias is huge. And the conversation degrades so quickly. And the word bias today in 2025 is doing so much work in a lot of different spaces. And when it comes to AI, an algorithmic bias, one of the things, when I teach to real estate professionals at Elkhart in Lancaster County, we talk about algorithmic bias. We talk about the soup zone. And when you're at that blank prompt, there's a concept of the 128 orthogonal dimensions, which are built of the stereotypes and the archetypes that we have in our language and the words that we use. And the words that you choose to prompt with are going to shape that output more than a lot of people think. And sometimes people use words through natural language that have deeper meanings and will drag a conversation in weights and tokens that you didn't really intend for it to go. So communication and language, understanding the words deeply and how they impact our culture is paramount. And I was saying when we had lunch, if someone came as a trainee to an appraisal, not just having that appraisal training, but knowing AI, we wouldn't even be able to move forward with someone coming as a trainee if they had zero AI. I'd send you back to GPT camp. You say, go do some vibe coding for a month and come back to us. And vibe coding is going to kill all the software jobs, I think, You can create an app now in seconds and crank out really anything you want. So we need people to come at us being able to do vibe coding, create dashboards, create agentic workflows that can tie APIs, do Zapier, reach out into the real world, do research. We don't have time to slow down and wait for people saying, oh, we don't use AI. We don't got time. We're going way too fast for all that. So yeah, it's bias is huge. It's doing a lot of work, and we have to be careful about how we're playing that word, because with AI, algorithmic bias is a whole other animal. And if anyone here uses Midjourney, that's a great example of seeing how your words are impacted by AI. Type in some words and phrases and do some prompts, and you can see how some simple words, how much weight they really hold in our culture. In Lancaster County, one of the biggest challenges appraisers have is the word Amish. And a lot of appraisers will say, well, that's just the way it is. There's Amish communities. Well, we can't do that because that's religiously identifying a particular group of people. You have to be able to talk about these tourism areas without using the word families and without using the word Amish. And these words come around and don't understand how impactful they are to talk about groups of people and the way people use structures. So we often say, if you're talking about how the people are, you're praising people, not buildings. So we can't use any sentences that are people-oriented. And bias just comes in and takes a huge swat at everything people understood about communication and words and word structure. So that's definitely impacted the praising.
You know, I would say for us, and this hack does a great job here with the students that you put out, especially in the HVAC field. I know we have some of the folks here in the room. But it's the fundamentals. I mean, AI, as I spoke, is doing amazing things in our industry. But when that engineer, that technician steps into a building, they need to have that base fundamentals of how building systems work. How does a building operate? How does it breathe? And all those things around thermodynamics and psychometrics. Those are kind of the table stakes to be able to leverage AI. If you don't know those things, AI, you're going to be very limited because you're not going to understand the data that's giving back to you. But the other thing I look at is you're preparing your students. When we look at performance management at our company, and I think somebody else mentioned that your tangible goals, you might have somebody that's really technical and really smart, and they do a lot of great things. At Johnson Controls, that's 1/3 of your performance. That's great. The other third is intangible behaviors. The book I carry around, our leadership, I still keep it on paper. Our leadership expectation model, it's the intangible behaviors. You know, how do you communicate? How do you look at integrity? How are you dealing with customers? How do you solve problems? How do you demonstrate emotional maturity? These are the things that are intangible, but that's a third. And the other third is your development plan. You know, I just started year 36, and I'm still developing. I haven't figured it out. I have a lot to learn. I think the older I get, the more I realize there's more out there than I'm ever going to get. But I think it's having students with that curiosity that want to continue to be that lifelong learner and want to continue to grow. But those are the three areas: tangible goals, intangible behaviors, development. Making sure that when your students are walking into the job market, they're ready to take that step and knowing that's how they're evaluated.
I want to go back to something that you said, Chris, and I think it's really interesting. So we had this conversation at lunch. Nick Bostrom wrote a book, Deep Utopia, which I absolutely love. And it's about a world that folks no longer need to work, right? AI and robotics have taken over 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, 80%, 90% of work that we do in life. And it's about finding meaning. What's the next step? And it's a thought experiment over the next 100, 150 years, right? And you said something interesting. I don't want to listen to music that is AI generated. I want to use my time effectively to adopt AI and then make my own music. And it brought me back to something that we said at lunch and what Mike and I were talking about. Do we value the artifact, the output of something more? Or do we value the journey to get there? Is the labor of love of creating music, does it make it more valuable? Or do we not care and say, hey, this is the best artifact that we have? And that's for all of your industries. In healthcare, I would assume maybe a little bit different. Hey, I care about saving lives. How we got there, let's save the life, right? So how does that differ industry to industry? The journey to get there or the output?
Yeah, this is maybe touching on the last question too, but this idea about, and maybe Scott kind of started off to say that empathy is a soft skill that students need to know going into all these industries. I mean, every panelist has mentioned this idea of how the technical thing is one thing, but if you can find someone that has this human, like these human connection and like interpersonal skills, teamwork, collaboration, I think that's the initial idea of when Alan Turing devised artificial intelligence. It was sort of, as a gay man in England, being systematically murdered by his government, it was, how can I develop a system that is a true partner to me and that could have empathy in a way that a person could? And so I think finding ways in which AI can enhance the elements that make us human, I think that's one side of tech that's not being fed to us by big tech. You know, big tech is Elon Musk's like empathy is the destruction of Western civilization. I think there's another side to it, which is how can we use technology to generate empathy? And I think that comes from, again, Scott had already kind of mentioned this, but a lot of the panelists have mentioned it, is being able to be a good listener and an active listener. And maybe we've seen those brain scans. Anybody see that brain scan where it was like GPT user versus non-chat? And it was like the brain was like completely inactive for the only ChatGPT user. I think it doesn't have to be that way. If we're using it in the way that we're being force-fed all the time, which is, here's the content, just consume it, right? And that's what social media does to us. It's like the feed comes across, and if one of your friends says something that's suddenly true because that little bubble of social media said it's true, and we even know that that's not just a social thing, but that's how the language models are working, right? If a lot of people say it, ChatGPT will say it's true. We have to fight that, and I think by fighting that, that's where we can get that active listening, that empathy back, I think, in a way. I don't even think that remotely answers what you just asked.
No, but I love it. I love it either way.
The answer to your question, or one perspective on your question, is just is it the labor that goes into it that's valuable, or is it the output?
Yeah.
If you got the same output, did it matter, right? And I think it matters in some context for industry, for sure, is what do you want to do with the output? So again, as the lawyer here, I'm thinking, well, how does AI fit into our legal structure right now? And in terms of owning things, it's pretty antiquated. I mean, right now, if you used AI to generate a song, no one owns that. Anybody can use it. There's no copyright. Machines can't be authors, so they can't own copyrights. So if you're a publishing house and you're trying to generate music, pop music that you want to commercialize, using AI to do that may not be a good idea. Likewise, if you're a research-based company who's innovative and on the cutting edge of technology, once again, AI can't be an inventor. So if you want to file a patent application, AI can't be the inventor. It can be a tool, but you can't just put a few prompts in, have it spit out something unique and say, I'm going to patent that. You can't. So you need to think about what you need to do with that output. Now, there's plenty of context where those things don't matter. You don't need to own it. You're not going to patent it, and it's fine if everyone uses it. But thinking in your organization about what do you need to do with what you're creating using the AI is going to drive whether you use it merely as a minor tool or whether it is the main generator of the content.
I'm going to keep it brief, but I think that something that we're all getting at is the importance of critical thinking. And I think that circles back to this audience right here, is it's important to teach critical thinking. And I don't mean just saying, hey, you need to critically think, but really to have a theory-based education approach to teach adult learners how to change their thinking to be more aware of what they don't know, so that they can find the information that they need in order to evaluate and figure out what they need to know. And I think that sort of layers on each of what we've mentioned so far. So I think that's really important in all curricula in higher education.
I think it matters a lot what the output is. And there's no one answer. Like a good lawyer or engineer, it depends. Tell me more. If I had two baseballs, I grew up in Maryland, sorry about that, but my favorite baseball player growing up was Cal Ripken Jr. If I have a baseball there that is actually signed by Cal Ripken Jr., that's worth $200. If I have one that I signed and looks exactly like Cal Ripken Jr., there is no material difference, it's worth nothing. In fact, the baseball by itself was worth $20 and I made it go down by faking it. So it really depends on the value of the output and the way the human values it. Probably none of us like to use Amazon, but we do. There are things that if I need a spoon, Amazon. I don't need an artisanal, handcrafted ladle all the time. Maybe I want one every now and then for ladle reasons. But in general, it doesn't really matter. It's fungible. It's a commodity. I don't care. But there are experiences, and especially like in IT. Scott and I work for MSPs. We've all had some pretty bad experiences with an IT guy at one point or another. So what people are paying for when they partner with us is not just that we fix the end problem, because there are 20 other MSPs that could have done it too, but how did you feel about that? How were you treated during that process? Did someone ask you questions about what are you really trying to do and maybe suggest a better way, an easier way for you to do it and help you with your workflow? Or was it like, can I get you off the phone as fast as humanly possible so I can go back to doom scrolling? There's a huge difference there in the way you approach the output and how you feel about your product if you're that company. What is your value proposition? How are you presenting it to people? If it's a commodity, then no, I don't think it matters. But if it's art, I would not pay $1 for AI-generated art. I just wouldn't. If it's something, even if it's bad, but someone I love made it, it's worth more to me. So there's a lot of variables there, but it really depends on the output and how the human receiving it values it.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah, don't want to cross the streams. Ghostbusters, bad memories. You know, the end result is truly what matters. As an educator, you want to see a polished, finished project. If you're in culinary arts, you want to see that cake taste delicious. If you're in programming, you want to see the web application work and operate the way it was designed. If you're in law enforcement, you want to make sure that it's safe to cross a street and do what you need to do. So whatever the profession is, whatever you're teaching, the end product is the result we want to see. But it goes back, and this is something we were talking about at lunch, you know, using a calculator saves you the time from actually sitting down and drawing out the math equation. But I learned early on in education, I had to show my work. Embrace ChatGPT, embrace technology, but require the students to show their work. Give me that first draft. The amount of emails that I've typed up that I'm sending to someone that I feel is a very important person, I want to make sure it sounds right. My wife is an amazing proofreader. She comes back and tells me I'm crazy all the time. And usually she's right. But showing that work, showing the evolution of how you got from draft 1 to draft 2 to draft 3 to that final product is just as critical in the thought process of finding that finished product. And as you embrace AI, as you embrace technology into your curriculums, which unfortunately you really don't have a choice because it's so embedded in the daily lives of everyone that you're touching today, make them show the work. Show me that early draft, show me that version, and let them upload those versions as they're going through it. Not that you want to read the same paper 6 times, but you want to see how they evolve as students and how they're growing and how you're helping them grow and using their heads as they're processing that large amount of data, because we all have to process and be able to process that data. If not, mentally speaking, it's the same thing. Who remembers the phone number? Well, I don't remember it. Where's my phone? If we let technology store all of our knowledge, we're not able to process it. We're not able to think on our own.
I like that we naturally led back to education, and that was my sneaking suspicion. Yeah. And well, we mentioned this a couple of times, but the thought of the output or the journey that matters, right? The formative versus summative versus competency-based or mastery path type of learning, we do have to reconsider in the age of artificial intelligence. So I do like that formative approach, and then that, you know, the value of that output, right? What are we intending to do with this thing at the end? And it's not the same for all of us. So I love that we all have different perspectives on this, right? And just like as we're building curricula, as we're revising curriculum, as we're looking at what we're doing for the future of higher education, we do have to consider, hey, these are different perspectives that are valued from industry, and nothing's wrong here, right? We have to adopt this in ways that make sense, and especially for our fans, if you're the Savannah Bananas, or our students as educators. I have one more question, and I'm going to put it to the panel, but I'm also going to open up the house for questions in person. And the big question, I'm going to give you time on this one, what does your industry look like in 10 years in the age of emerging technology? What are the changes? And if you have it now, it's great, but I'll also invite people from the house to ask questions along the way to give you some time. So in 10 years, what will change with your industry, and maybe in relation to how people will enter your industry? Yeah, go for it.
So if you know Moore's Law, it says that every 18 to 24 months, computing power doubles. So back in the 80s, there was the MS-DOS, like single line prompt command computing. And in 25 years, we went from that to the iPhone. With these new ChatGPT or these language models, we're seeing that the computing power is doubling like almost every 6 months. So it's like 3 times faster. So that would be essentially going from the MS-DOS to an iPhone in like 7 years versus 25. So for construction, 10 years from now is it's so exponentially high that it's almost unfathomable to imagine what would be taking place. I know for us, whatever we think is impossible now is most likely possible in 10 years. It's going to be possible in 10 years. So I know, at least from our industry, we take it in very small steps. We think of something that's impossible, and we bring that to the forefront, and we talk about it, and usually within a couple of months, it's something that's very plausible, something that we're working through. So like generating images with these language models for construction really isn't a thing, because there's so many nuance. When we're building a building, We have the architect and engineers generating all these different drawing sets, and there's all kinds of nuances and little details in every nook and cranny of a building. And ChatGPT, if you ask it, can you give me a detail of this corner? It doesn't really know what other systems are involved. We're not there yet. We don't do it now because we're not there yet. But in 6 months or in a year, that may be possible to say, can you give me a construction detail for the corner of this building? We're not sure how to build it. And it'll come back and tell us exactly what we're looking for. So for us, it's small incremental steps, but we're always trying to push the limit to see just how far it'll go before we actually maybe get the answer in a few years. So 10 years, we'll probably have a completely different landscape than what it is now.
I'm going to go with flying cars. I got a good feeling this time.
We'll get it. We'll get it.
Just like Tesla, like self-driving is going to be here in 2 years, guys. You've been saying that for 10 years. Yeah, but trust me on this one. It's really going to change how we hire entry level. Right now, a lot of people we hire entry level have some ability to work with their own computers and that kind of stuff. But a lot of entry level tasks across all industries are going to be automated. So you're going to have to view your entry level hires as an investment. The ramp up time is going to be longer. We're going to have to teach them more before they're fully ramped up to full productivity. And also, as a cybersecurity company, it's possibly a nightmare. Like I love people vibe coding because we test those things, and vibe coding it is not always a great idea. So it depends on what it is, right? Like I want to try to vibe code an app that lets my wife know that I fed the dog. Because apparently we were double feeding the dog there for a while. And so that's data. I don't really care if anybody has that. If someone knows, hey, Chris fed the dog, great, God bless, love you. But anything more sensitive than that, I don't want insecure. So we're going to have to, the way we do cybersecurity is going to have to change fundamentally. And people are going to have to be much more, take more ownership of that themselves. We really want to have an approach where people are not, the end user is not the enemy in cybersecurity. We want to help educate them and let them be their own best advocate. I think that's going to be the shift is we're going to all have to be more educated on this and be more aware of the risks. And entry level is where I see the biggest change. We're going to have to make an investment and make sure that we're training people the way we want them trained. It's not just, it's going to be harder and harder to find people who are ready to go.
I agree that it's sort of unfathomable what's going to happen in 10 years. I do think that broadly in healthcare, though, we're working towards a precision medicine framework. And what that means is that our technology is able to process much more health data in a quicker period of time than the human mind can. And I think that what's going to end up happening is the data that we have documented on one's health is then going to go and inform specific treatment decisions that are made down the road. And I'll give you, just one example. There's an entire field emerging now called pharmacogenetics. It's a fancy way of saying that we can now look at your genetic profile and identify which medication will respond best to the particular issue that you're having. And I think that we're going to see more of this data integration in a way that creates a digital profile of a patient to guide very specific medical interventions.
I think, again, what everyone said, very hard to look at 10 years and think about how the legal profession is going to be different. Sitting here today, I do think there'll be fewer lawyers. Usually there's a round of applause for that. And I do think that the outside industries are going to, two things. I think the outside industries are going to chip away at what law firms traditionally do. And I also think AI is going to empower ordinary individuals who are not lawyers to do a lot of the fundamental legal work that they currently pay us to do. So drafting contracts, AI's mediocre at that right now, but in 2 years it might be just as good as someone with 2 or 3 years of experience, which might be all you need in a lot of situations. Evaluating certain risks, understanding regulatory landscapes, things that people call me for all the time, they might have reliable access to in the future. And so either we have to, as law firms, decide, well, we're going to just cede that to skills and services we no longer provide, or we're going to have to find a cost-effective way to do it, probably by leveraging AI. I think where you'll see the traditional legal battles are going to be where the AI it's very difficult to predict the outcome. And those are going to be very consequential decisions. So I do see the profession becoming much more top-heavy toward the people who have experience and judgment. How we will generate those people, the next generation of lawyers, when everyone comes in and is just using the tools, is going to be tough.
Yeah, again, 10 years is a long way away. I think I'll still be working, but we'll see. But no, I think when you look at how buildings are built today, and Ken can probably speak to this being in the construction, we're still building buildings today the same way we did 50 years ago. And I would say taking all these disparate systems, and hopefully in 5 years, they're much more connected. We see much more things going from proprietary to the IP systems, but how do we take that data and generate that data and more information so AI can use it? Because today we have a lot of data, but it's very difficult to pull together. So I would say that in 5 years, I'm hoping the building systems are much more connected. I'll give you an example. We just finished a building in Europe. So if you work in this complex, it knows who you are. It'll guide you to the optimal parking space to know where you need to go. You come in at 2 a.m., it will light up the parking lights just to your office. It'll guide you to your office for safety. When you cart into the building, again, it lights you to the building. It only turns on the HVAC to your office. The cool thing is, I really love this from a sustainability perspective. We count the cars coming in every day, and we feed that data at 10 a.m. to the cafeteria, and they've reduced food waste by 20% because now they don't overproduce food. They know how many people. So those are just some cool examples of how technology, and that'll just be the norm in the future, not something that is kind of space age we're looking at.
Yeah, I think we're already seeing it in the creative industries is the increasing convergence across areas. I think you look at games as sort of the apex of the entertainment industries in a lot of ways, at least in terms of money making, but games is an industry that involves all the different artistic areas. And part of that, I think, that we've seen, or part of the reason we've seen that isn't a great one. It's the fact that there's such a stranglehold of big tech, and that they're controlling income streams, so that it's not as possible for record labels to thrive without the support of that. But I think where AI can maybe help this is facilitate the sort of shared languages across the arts that would allow the type of interdisciplinary work that we push as educators, right? So that these types of collaborations can happen on a more fruitful kind of level.
I'm going to take it a different approach, and instead of what's going to change over the next 10 years, I want to just touch on what's going to be the same. And as a cybersecurity professional, as someone that loves technology, loves the future that we're going to, the one constant throughout time has been social engineering. When you were kids, or your kids today, when they lay themselves on the floor in the grocery store screaming they want that toy or they want that cereal, they're socially engineering you to the point of you're upset to just put it in the cart, or you walk away in frustration. Do you want to be seen as the parent that's firm, or do you just push the line of I'm now embarrassed? You saw it in Troy, the Trojan horse. If the king was in love with cows and not horses, would he have allowed the Trojan horse into the gates, into the city? Social engineering has been around before computers, before technology. Social engineering is going to continue. What we see with AI is no more of the prince asking for $1 million to help him get $5 million back. We understand that. Everyone has heard that. But what you haven't heard is the art form that is becoming social engineering. The need to know something emotionally changes your outcome of how you click that phone, the computer, whatever device you're using on tomorrow. During COVID, social engineering was so rampant because your emotional need to know what was open, what was closed, what I can do, what I can't do, outweighed every ounce of cybersecurity training you ever received. When the bridge collapsed in Baltimore, the need to know what my new traffic pattern outweighed any previous training you've had before. Natural disasters, man-made incidents, creates an emotional need that outweighs the training. And with AI, I've gone to events where I've spoken and I've used AI to craft targeted emails around something locally that's happening. most popular was I was in Houston for a security conference, and I was able to gather a large number of emails from the event list. And I sent out mass emails offering free Taylor Swift tickets because she happened to be in Taylor Swift that week. Or Taylor Swift happened to be in Houston that week. And I had, of cybersecurity pros, 60, 70% people clicking this malicious link. Because AI generated an amazing email offering backstage passes just for the conference attendees to meet Taylor Swift. It's amazing how AI can generate that. But as educators, we have to be aware of, there are things that's going to change. You've heard it today. You're going to utilize technology in new ways tomorrow than none of us have ever thought of. But the constant aspects, social engineering, by its root nature, is fundamental. It's the core aspect of throwing yourself down on the floor to get what you want. It's the giving a gift, knowing he loves horses, he's going to let the horse in, we're going to invade and we're going to win. Those techniques have been around forever, 10 years past, and they're going to be here 10 plus years into the future.
That's about all the time we have, folks. Big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you for your thought leadership. Thank you for your insights. And thank you for everything you do for all of our students. Thank you for all of the attendance in person, online, and thank you for helping us remain #HackProud. Thanks, everybody.